welcome. How are you enjoying yourself? How did you like the conference so far? Cool, nice to hear that, nice to hear that. I just was given a thumbs up to start, so let's get this party started. Welcome, happy that you chose this talk for the big closure of the day. Yes, so we are living in the era of social media, right? I don't think that there is any discussion going on around that statement. And I am myself guilty of over-scrolling through Instagram Reels, Shorts on YouTube. I had a Snapchat some time ago, so I was scrolling through that as well. And if I were to have a TikTok, I would most possibly be over-scrolling that one as well. And it's okay, mostly-ish, because it apparently serves different purposes. It lets your brain take a break, if you are, of course, not overusing it and turning it into addiction. But also, you can learn a lot of fun things, like you can find the tarot readings for the next week ahead so that you will know what the future holds for you. Or you can learn about Earth being flat. If you believe that, it's okay. I don't mind, but this is something that Instagram tries to tell me constantly. And earlier this year, I also had, the algorithm decided to choose a very interesting set of reels for me. And they all concluded in one simple sentence, which is, JavaScript is weird. So, hello everyone. My name is Gosia. I have absolutely no presentable picture of myself, so this is what you get, sorry. I'm a senior full-stack.NET/React developer at Sector Alarm. Okay, now I can breathe. I am a co-author of DevOps Journey blog, devopsifyme.com. I am also a friend of international tech meetup community in Oslo, and JetBrains community contributor. With this last one, I very highly recommend you staying with me till the end, because I have a very nice surprise for you prepared. All the links for the blog and everything we'll find at the end of this presentation. I also like sharing one random thing about myself before we start. So I very much enjoy watercolor painting when I'm not coding. Sometimes when I'm coding too, to be fairly honest. And those are 3 paintings that I painted most recently. Just a fun fact. So this will be it when it comes to introduction. My first question of many that are coming today, do you know those guys? Yeah, sorry? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm happy that you're familiar with the franchise of MythBusters. We are going to make something special today. We are having a JavaScript special edition of MythBusters. I will explain everything later, but let's start with some pre-assumptions for this presentation. Selection is very much opinionated. I chose the examples, but I chose them based on several factors. One, examples that are the most often repeating over the reels that I was scrolling. And 2, I wanted to keep it on a fairly basic level. Yeah, fairly introductory. So, having that said, let's see what we are facing right now. Because in order to say that something is weird, I think it's important to look into the usage, into how popular something is, into some statistics in general. So I checked the W3 Tech. I think it's one of the biggest companies that is gathering up information about web applications so far. So it turns out that JavaScript is actually crushing any other client-side language because it's used by 98.9% of the web applications. And this is not something that just happened this year, right? I took a time span of 3 years back, and it remained mostly at the same level. There was one tiny change around April this year when we took a jump from 0.8 to 0.9. And it might seem like not a lot, but they are actually scanning through millions and millions of websites. So this 0.1% sounds kind of impressive. But what is even more interesting is that when we look into server-side programming languages, JavaScript is on the 5th place. Whether it should be there or not is a different question, but it is there. So, having that said, it's demo o'clock. So do we have any Americans here? Someone who came from the US? No? And are you familiar with the jury duty idea? So you will be on your very first jury duty this time. I will be playing the devil's advocate, trying to explain some of the quirks of the JavaScript, but at the end of the day, it will be you who decides whether something is weird, sometimes maybe weird, but not really weird, or totally not weird. But, okay, let's look into the example. I prepared for you very fancy. Is the code visible, or should I zoom it? I think I shouldn't zoom in it. Very fancy web application. On top, we have a list, so you get a spoiler about what we are going to talk about. And piece of code. And then at the end, there are 3 buttons. So you will be deciding which button should we click. I think that is best learned by examples. So let's start with the first one, which is type correction. Correction, yeah. What we will try to do, we will try adding 1 to 2. Then we will move on to subtracting 1 from 2. And at the end, we will add 2 truths, 2 booleans, to each other. Let's see the results, what JavaScript tells us. Yes. That was one of the most popular examples. Why does 1 plus 2 equals 12? Yeah, you probably see already that 2 is not really a 2, but it's a string, right? It's not a number, but it's a string. So it all boils down to JavaScript being a loosely typed language and actually making a lot of type fixing, or something that I believe that it thinks is a type fixing and type correcting, which is called type coercion. So plus sign in this very first example does not mean the arithmetical plus sign. It's like string concatenation, right? The plus sign is overloaded in JavaScript. So it has 2 meanings. One, if both of arguments are number, it will perform adding, mathematical adding. But if at least one of them is a string, it will map all of the other parameters to string. Thus, 1, which is clearly a number here, and the whole process becomes a string. That's why we concatenate 1 and 2 and get 12. With minus, though, minus is not overloaded. It's simply a mathematical operation, so it's trying to convert all of the elements of your equations to number. And with true plus true equaling 2, in mathematical operations, JavaScript treats booleans as numbers. So false being 0, true being 1. And we get 2. Obviously, right? So let's try and do our first voting. We will vote by raising our hand. Do you think that this is weird, maybe weird sometimes, like plausibly. Yeah, okay. How about totally normal behavior? And well, there is a lot of voices, but only 2 raised hands. So we will go for the plausible. Yes. So this is kind of the format that I would like to take today. Don't worry, I will not call anyone on stage in the process. It's just raising hands, okay? Sorry. Okay, let's move on to the not a number. Can you see it okay, or should I zoom in a little bit more? Okay, perfect. So, what with the not a number? What will we try to do? We will first see the type of not a number, and then we will check if one not a number equals not a number. So what do you think? What will be the type of a not a number? Yeah. Let's see if you're right. But yes, type of not a number is a number indeed. Why is that so? Well, we have standardization. And in IEEE, 3 E's, 754, it talks about floating points. Actually, I will be referring to this quite a lot, much more than I would love to refer to. It defines not a number as a special value, and as an undefined or unrepresentable value or result of a mathematical equation. So it can be a result of dividing by 0 or taking square root from the negative number. And believe me or not, having not a number as a number in JavaScript, it actually makes things less complicated because it allows to continue arithmetical operations without throwing an error in the meantime, in the process. So we could handle it easily as well. And not a number not being equal to another not a number, it also comes from the standardization, but it's a little bit more logical if you think about it, because the 2 equations can yield in not a number from 2 completely different reasons, right? One can be 5 divided by 0. The other can be taking a square root of -1. So thus they cannot be equal to each other. And that's it I've got to say about this. Let's move on to the voting. Do you think that this is weird? Yeah, that's quite a lot of people. But just to be safe, let's check for plausible option. Okay, slightly less than weird. How about this being normal behavior? I'm sorry, but the confirmed won this time. Now another very popular example among the reals, but also I think that it's quite popular among the people who are just starting with JavaScript development. What we will check here is whether or not 0 equals false or 0 equals false, or empty string equals 0, or empty string equals 0. Yeah. So it turns out that 0 equals false, but it doesn't equal false, and empty string equals 0, but it doesn't equal 0. Thank you. And actually, the reason behind that is fairly simple, because we have 2 different types of equality in JavaScript. You have loose equality and a strict equality. And again, it all comes down to JavaScript being a loosely typed language, right? The loose equality does not check for the type of the parameters of the variables that we are comparing to each other, but it performs type coercion. So as I said earlier, Booleans are being translated into numbers, and false equals 0. Thus, it is loosely equal, 0 is loosely equal to false, but the triple equal sign also checks for the type, right? So even though the false can be translated into 0, but number will not be equal to a Boolean. Yeah, and the same thing happens with empty string. So what do you think? Is this normal? It makes sense. So, okay, we can... okay, I will ask because I feel like I should. Do you think that this is plausible, that this might be treated as weird? Okay, and is this weird completely? Yeah, so sorry, but we can bust this myth, as I think. Now let's try with... Okay, not good. Thank you, my lovely company. Yes, adding objects. So what we have here? We have, let's focus on the 4 objects. Object 1 is an object with just one property, type string. And the object 2 also has one property, age, and its number. Then we have 2 objects that have some method defined with the value of. And what we will try to do with those 4 objects. And as you can see, some arrays as well, because both objects and arrays, I cannot say this in a second. So we will try to add object 1 to object 2, then subtract object 3 from object 4, just to add a little bit something fun. Then we will add 2 arrays to each other. We'll try to subtract the arrays of numbers and subtract the arrays of string. Quite a lot of examples. So let's take a look into the results right away. Oh, I can actually hold it like this. It's still well visible, right? Cool. Okay, so when we add object 1 to object 2, we get this beautiful baby. But when we subtract object 3 from 4, we get a valid number. Then when we try adding 2 arrays, we get something. And surprisingly, when we are subtracting those arrays, we got numbers even though there are strings over here. And I don't have much to say about this, honestly, because I said a lot in the previous examples, because it all comes down to the type coercion again, and plus sign being overloaded. So object is not a reference type in JavaScript, right? So what it will try to do, the JavaScript, what will it do, will be parsing them into strings. And this is how object is defined as a string in JavaScript. The same exact thing happens here, right? We will have a string of 1, 2, and the other string of 3, 4. When we concatenate, we get this one. With minus being a mathematical operation, as I said, it tries to coerce, to fix everything into numbers as much as possible. That's why it manages to subtract 2 strings from each other, because, well, those strings are numbers when you map them into numbers. And this beauty is working because of the value of method that we've defined over here, right? So it's specifically designed to provide value, which I think that most typically will be a number. Then an object is used in a numeric context, like so, just like here. But it happens only when you specifically declare, program this method of value of to be there in the object. So, having all of that in mind, do you think that this is normal and should not be considered weird? Do you think that it might be weird at some cases? No? Do you think that this is completely weird and okay, then this is weird. We can confirm it. Moving on to comparing objects. Let me take a second. Okay. This time we have 3 objects. Object 1 with 1 property of string. Object 2, 1 property string. Then what we will do is assign object 1 to object 3. And we will check if object 1 equals object 2 and object 1 equals object 3. What do you think? Will object 1 be equal to object 2? And will object 1 be equal to object 3? Yes. Let's see if you're right. Well, you were right. Congratulations. Of course, it all boils down to objects and arrays being a reference type. So what are we doing here, actually, is not recreating a new object, initializing a new object from the scratch with the same properties and the same values, right? We are assigning object 3 the reference to the object 1, which means that we are pointing to exact same place in the memory for those 2 objects. Yeah, so that's why, because object 1 and object 2 are different objects in the different places in memory, they are not equal. But as object 1 and 3 are pointing to the same exact thing, they are the same. Yeah, there is no built-in comparison for objects in JavaScript, so if yeah, of course. Sorry, it took me a while. I confused myself for a second. Yes, because they are reference objects, we are not comparing them value by value, rather than we are comparing the references, whether or not the object is pointing to the same place in the memory. So, do you think that this is normal? Okay, I will not ask for more, sorry. This is like totally, you agree. So staying in the topic of reference objects, let's look. Okay. It's always so stressful when it takes more than 1 second to load. How does it look with value assign? We have one object, again, with the name property. We will have object 2 that. Okay, I have to go here because I just found a bug in my own code. Thus it would not work, right? So let's run it in the code pen. Why not? Yeah, so what we are trying to do is assigning the object 2, like modifying the property of object 2. And we get the original object value also modified. And I actually gave you the explanation in the previous step. So, because object 2, okay, I will use my object 2 is pointing to the exact same object as object 1 in the same place in the memory, when we modify the new quote-unquote object, we will actually also modify the original one. Yes, so let's move on to the voting, because I can also tell you that this is called shallow cloning, right? Because we are cloning only reference to the object, not the whole object with all the properties and their values. That is also not built in, so you have to do this in the custom way. Houston? Houston, I've done something. Oh, it's back, okay. It's JavaScript ghosts, I think. They are taking their revenge. Is it me doing something? I can just try and reconnect this, everything. Turn on and off and on again. That usually helps too. Could I kick something here, maybe? Okay. I will try to be as delicate as possible. I only just moved one step. Okay. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yes, okay. So can we do the voting? I can just put it in the HDMI. Okay. Okay, let's give it a try, the voting. Do you still remember what I was talking about? Okay, cool. I think I have to offer some offering to the JavaScript gods really after this presentation because they are going to hate me. Yes, so do you think that this value assign thing is weird? Okay, weird. Kind of weird, but not always, not in all cases, okay. Who says that it's normal? Okay, so we can pass this one. Now let's take a look into the, I'm honestly afraid to stand here right now, into some nulls and undefines. So what we will check first is the type of null and the type of undefined. If null is equal to undefined, and then we will try adding something to both of them. Let's try and see what we get. So, null, which, let me remind you, means something that is empty, is an object. Undefined has its own type of undefined. Null is equal to undefined, but at the same time it's not equal to undefined. Thank you, JavaScript. We can make, we can add to null, but we cannot add anything to undefined. So let's take it from the top. Why is null an object? And there is no logical explanation for this, other than it's just a bug in JavaScript that just remained with us until this day, because we had to maintain the backwards compatibility. Originally, it was designed, it was thought it's supposed to have its own type. Undefined is undefined. And of course, when we think of null, it's intentional lack of something, while undefined oftentimes always boils down to a wrong initialization of a value. So in the arithmetics, well, I think that the comparison can be also called arithmetics. Null and undefined represent lack of something, right? Thus, they are loosely equal to each other. But they are of different type. That's why they are also not equal to each other. And we can continue with mathematical operations with null, because when there is arithmetical operation happening, null is interpreted, is treated as a 0, while undefined is treated as not a number. Sorry, thus we cannot proceed with any. That's why we have a not a number over here. But we don't get errors. So, what do you think? Is this a normal thing? Okay. Is this possible that this will happen this way? Like plausibly weird, but okay. I'm afraid that I'm getting too much of plausibility, so we will not end up in any conclusion, but okay. And who of you think that this is, if I ask if this is normal? Oh, sorry, again, is this normal in your opinion? Okay, is this possibly weird, like, kinda? Okay, is this weird, totally weird? Okay, we end up on the plausibility, definitely. And what's my time? Okay, I still have quite some good time. So let's move on to the great feature of JavaScript, which is automatic semicolon insertion. Insertion, yes. We have one function that returns an object with one property, Gosia. And we are going to try and get the type of whatever the function returns, right? So I would say I would expect an object. You? Yeah, we have some good JavaScript developers here. Yes, it is undefined. And in the code there, I will zoom in over here. This is the reason why. Because the automatic semicolon insertion is a feature in JavaScript that tries to be smart and plays the semicolon whenever developer might have forgotten it. The perk here, and this is actually a very common example, is that with the return statement, it tries to be even smarter and expects that your return statement is in the same line as the return keyword. That's why you get an undefined, because there's nothing here. Yes, it puts semicolon here, yeah. Yeah. So do you think that this is indeed dumb and weird behavior of JavaScript? Okay, you crashed this one. Let's see that this is a confirmed weirdness. Moving on. Oh, that's my favorite one of all. Functions. Okay, I'm getting too excited right now. We have two functions, function 1 and function 2, both taking in 3 parameters. And yes, in JavaScript, we can check the length of the function. So let's see what is the length of the function 1 and the function number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 3 and 1. Let me zoom out so that you can clearly see also the implementation of the functions, because what do you think? What does the function length return? Yeah, the amount of parameters. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so it's yeah, it actually, you are correct. It returns the amount of parameters that the function takes, but it counts only these parameters that are before the first defined, like the first parameter with the default value. That's why first function has length of 3, because it takes 3 parameters without any default value. And function 2 has a length only of 1, because before the first default value, there is only 1 parameter. So, yes, there are some more tricks to that. So if you actually Google that one, if you're interested, you can read. a little bit more with the complex patterns, with arrays, how it sometimes just ignores all of the parameters. But what do you think? Is this absolutely fine and normal behavior that you can have a method in a function? Is this possibly weird? Okay. Is this absolutely weird? Thank you. And this is the one example, one last example that I have for you today, that actually I have a very good memories with, because I got this exact question on my very first interview. Yeah. It turns out to be quite popular. So we will check if 0.1 plus 0.2 equals 0.3. I will ask you, let's see. No, it does not equal 0.3. And my inner mathematician is just dying inside. But remember this standardization that I told you, this IE754? Yeah, so that's the issue again. And that's not only the JavaScript issue. If you code with Python, .NET, C, you might encounter the same endpoint, the same issue if you don't use correct types. And why is that? It's a rounding error, actually, because according to that standardization, all of the numbers are stored in binary, base 2. So, in fact, what we get, this is not 0.1, but this is something like 0.0011001100, and this 0011 continues. 0.2 is 0.001100110011, and because we have a limited memory, and so we have to round this number, right? Because the 0011 repeats endlessly, just like you have 1/3 that equals 0.3333333 till the end. Right? So we have to round it up at some point. And this is the example of rounding. And I can actually show you right now. Just out of curiosity, let's try. I know it's a fancy code. Please don't judge me for that. Let's try what it actually gives us. No, so we have rounding at the very end, somewhere, right? But as I said, this is not like purely JavaScript, but a lot of those reels that I told you at the very beginning of the presentation loved bringing this example as a weirdness of JavaScript. So what do you think? Is this weird? Okay, I have to ask. Is this possibly weird? Okay, is this absolutely normal? Okay, then this is weird. Because yeah. So, big reveal time. Last time I ended up with having the same for busted and confirmed. Let's see what we get today. Yay! Oh, I like this. So we officially confirmed that the JavaScript is weird. Thank you. But don't go just yet. I have a few slides left for you. And remember about the big surprise. Would you like to see the previous slide again? If someone wants to take a picture, we just confirmed it. Yeah. So let's go back to the slides. And, well, yeah, just a short summary. Why is this? Why is JavaScript weird and so commonly considered weird? Well, JavaScript originally, skipping a little bit of the history, had a very short time to production in the first version. and it was only 10 days, right? It was also back in the days when there was a huge, how's it called, a browser war, and JavaScript was originally very tied to Netscape network browser. So other browsers, like for example, Internet Explorer, they had to create their own version of JavaScript. So we had inconsistencies and a lot of different versions at the early days. And until today, we had to maintain some of the backwards compatibility. That's why things like the null being an object remained and stayed with us until this day. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm defending it right now, literally defending JavaScript. Please have mercy, God. Yeah, so why the complaining? Why is it there? One, for subjective reasons, something that is weird to someone does not necessarily mean that it will not be. Yeah, one person's weirdness is a normal for the other person. Lack of knowledge, I don't want it to sound arrogant, but I think that we proved right now with quite some examples that if you understand the mechanism between some things, weirdness out of the sudden becomes normal. Believed by a lot means must be true, influence from things like Reels and the Shorts and all of that. And the online content, this is kind of connected to each other. Okay, I will be wrapping up because I'm afraid that something worse will happen in a second. But I have to make some self-promotion. If you would like to, here are 3 QR codes for our blog. If you want to, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or anything. And if you are ever in Oslo, just check the ITM website. Maybe there is event happening right now, so you are welcome to join us. I will give you like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 1.25, 0. Okay. And last but not least, the promised surprise. I have for you 2 100% discounts for all the JetBrains products. The only thing I would like you to ask you to do is going into this QR code and filling in, it's, I think, around 10 questions related to this presentation and JavaScript being weird in general. I will make the raffle, I think, maybe around 8 p.m. today. I am asking you to provide email address, because I have to contact with the ones of you who win, and your name, because I like knowing whom am I sending email to as well. So thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions? No? Great, then thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.